How's it going, guys? Cody back again, dropping yet another video. Right, guys, the story I'm about to read you is about Helen McCourt murderer Ian Sims, who's set for parole. Now, normally you'd be like, guy served a hell of a long time in prison, deserves his parole. Not this guy. I'm going to read the story. A lot of you have been through the system, supported somebody in prison, have been in prison, have worked in prison, and have gone through parole windows, right, before the parole board, whether it be an oral hearing, paper panel. Let me know in the comment section what you think of this story and about the contents, guys, and whether you think he should be granted parole or not. BBC News, link in the description below, like I always do. Headline reads, Helen McCourt murderer Ian Sims is set for parole. The mother of a murder victim is horrified her daughter's killer will be freed despite never revealing where her body is. Ian Sims, 63, was jailed in 1989 for murdering Helen McCourt, who disappeared in February 1988, aged just 22. He was originally sentenced to a minimum of 16 years. The killer was considered for parole for the 7th time on November the 8th. An official said he had met the test for release. Sims killed Miss Court as she walked home from work in Liverpool. Her mother, Marie, said she was left shaking with anger after receiving a call earlier from a victim liaison officer at the parole board confirming Sims' release. I'm just in a state of shock, to be honest, Miss McCourt said, from the family home in Billinge near St Helens, Merseyside. I've just had some forms come through. I think it's on what grounds the parole board has granted him release on licence, but I don't know all the conditions. I was just in shock. I'm still trying to deal with it. I'm horrified by it. This man is a danger. She's urged the next government to introduce Helen's Law legislation that would deny parole to killers who do not disclose their victims' remains. The bill recently ran out of time when the next general election was called. Analysis. This is from Danny Shaw, BBC Home Affairs correspondent. It feels wrong and unjust and unfair that a convicted murderer can be freed from jail without giving any clue to where his victim's body is, but parole decisions are not based on fairness. They're about assessing objectively whether an offender can be safely managed outside prison after they've served their minimum term, the punishment part of their sentence. In Sims' case, it appears parole board did consider his refusal to divulge where Helen McCourt's remains are, but weighed that alongside numerous other factors. It is hard to see. Therefore, now Helen's Law would have made a difference in this case. It does no more than require the board to take the non-disclosure of information by an offender into account when determining if they should be let out. However, the bill backed by Conservative, Labour and the Liberal Democrats will be reintroduced when Parliament sits again after the election, when it becomes law. Maybe that will affect cases in the future. A lasting legacy of Marie McCourt's tireless campaigning. Sims was denied release at a hearing in 2016, but was subsequently transferred to an open prison. Due to progress made where he has followed the rules when granted temporary release. The parole board said it has carefully considered Sims' failure to reveal where he concealed Miss Court's body and concluded there is no prospect of Sims ever disclosing the whereabouts of his victim, even if he were kept in prison until he died. The parole board added the refusal continues to cause understandable distress and misery to the victim's family, and the panel concluded that this demonstrated a lack of empathy. But it said denial was not a necessarily determining factor, and also considered evidence from 2 psychologists who recommended release. The parole board said the progress that Mr. Sims has made, the considerable change in his behaviour, the fact he has not been involved in any violence or substance misuse for many years, his protective factors, the recommendations from all the professionals and the evidence presented at the hearing, the panel was satisfied that Mr. Sims met the test for release. Miss McCourt has described not knowing the whereabouts of her daughter's body as torture. If Helen's Law had been on the statute books right now, these judges would have to really make sure in their decision to release him that he would be safe. I think she means parole board. They would have gone into that They would have gone to obey the law, and it hasn't happened. She added, she did not know when or where Sims would be released or had very little to go on. And then it gives a timeline. February 1988, Helen McCourt, 22, disappeared from her home near Billinge. 1989, Ian Sims was found guilty of her murder after blood and an earring identical to one belonging to her were found in his car boot. February 1989, he was jailed for life and told he would have to serve at least 16 years before being considered eligible for parole. February 2004, Sims became eligible to be considered for release from prison. 2015 December, Marie McCourt launched a petition calling for a change in the law to ensure killers are not released unless they reveal the location of their bodies. February 2016, Sims was deemed unsuitable for release, but it was also recommended that he should be moved to an open prison. Marie McCourt also visited Downing Street to hand over her petition. October 2016, MPs voted in favour of Helen's law to deny killers parole if they did not reveal the location of their victims' remains. July 2019, Justice Secretary David Gore confirmed the law would be adopted in England and Wales. October 2019, the bill to enact Helen's law was presented to the House of Commons after being included in Monday's Queen's speech. It was expected to become law in spring of 2020, but this was prior to the general election. November 2019. Sims was considered for parole for the 7th time, and officials said that he had met the test for release. And that's it. So, like I say, guys, normally when it comes to stories about parole and people that have been in prison for decades, I would say, like, they've served the sentence, and for the victims' families, for the victim or the victim's families, obviously not in murder charges because a victim will be dead, but for victims or families of victims, that no sentence would ever be enough. But I actually agree, he shouldn't be released. How can you say, right, yeah, you've gone through jail, and yeah, you've stayed out of trouble, and yeah, you've not pissed positive on drugs test, and yeah, you've worked with the offender management unit, yes, you've engaged, yes, you've done your courses, yes, you've gone through, you've been recategorized, you've gone from probably a Cat A to a Cat B to a Cat B to a Cat C, from a Cat C eventually gets refused his parole, but also gets his Cat D. So he got his Cat D at the same hearing in 2016. He's been in that Cat D prison, so he's obviously been out in the community. He's not absconded, he's played ball, and then they set to release him. But I actually agree with this Helen's law that he shouldn't be released because he hasn't divulged or disclosed the location of Helen McCourt's body. I genuinely do believe that. And this is a kid who, I speak up for prisoners, I'm for prisoners, but I can't support this action. But they said there, even if he was kept in prison till his dying day, he wouldn't reveal where the body is. I don't understand why. You've been sentenced, you've gone to jail, you've served your time, right? The parole board should have said, we will release you on the condition that you reveal the location of Helen McCourt's body so that she can be repatriated and buried in a plot. Her mother can grieve, her soul can rest. And like I said, the mother, she's getting on, and it's going to be one of those situations where, sadly and tragically, Marie McCourt might pass away because this guy's not going to reveal the location. I do believe that it should have been that the parole board should have said, whether on the record or off the record, you reveal where Helen McCourt's body is so she can be buried, and we will release you. But like I said, he's passed the release to be fitness to be released test, their criteria. So he probably did that on an oral hearing or a paper panel. And like I said, I've seen it where people are up in arms and trying to get it retracted and taken back. Because I remember when the parole board said that fucking John Warboy should have been released, the taxi rapist who had over 100 victims but had only been convicted of several of them. And they said he was fit to be released. Now, what annoys me, you've got IPP prisoners, right, in prison for public protection prisoners that have been in prison for, like I say, indeterminate sentences. And it's been abolished. It was abolished in 2012, but not retrospectively. and there's many prisoners that are many years over tariff, and they've got no release date. This guy killed somebody, hasn't revealed where the body is, still refuses to accept and reveal the location, yet he's getting out. But yet there's prisoners that are many years over tariff, no release date in sight, that are jumping through for the offender management unit, playing the game, playing the parole window, going before the parole board, doing everything, and then they're just moving the goalpost or rejecting them, knocking them back. Unbelievable, guys. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Stories in the link in the description. Like, comment, subscribe. Cody out.